Here's a question. Should we build more roads or improve public transport? Imagine a city where almost everyone drives a car. The roads are full, traffic moves slowly, the air is polluted, and every morning thousands of people sit in traffic, going nowhere. So what's the solution? Build more roads or persuade people to use public transport? It sounds simple, but there's a problem. People drive for a reason. Cars are convenient, they're flexible, you can leave whenever you want and go wherever you want. So if governments want to change how people travel, they have to give them a reason. And that makes this a very interesting IELTS topic. So the easy answer, okay, imagine the examiner asks, what's the best way to solve traffic problems in cities? You could say, I think governments should improve public transport because there are too many cars. That's clear, but kind of basic. Let's develop it. I would argue that investing in public transport infrastructure is one of the most effective ways of reducing congestion in urban areas. Now, that's a very different sentence. And let's look at the upgrades. Improve public transport becomes invest in public transport infrastructure. Too many cars becomes congestion in urban areas, and solve traffic problems becomes reduce congestion. That's exactly the kind of vocabulary shift that could take you from a straightforward 5.5 response to a more sophisticated 6.5 response. But vocabulary isn't enough. We need to explain why. So why do people drive? Here's an important point. People don't necessarily drive because they don't care about the environment. They might drive because it's convenient. They might live somewhere without a reliable bus service. I do. They might have children. They might work somewhere that isn't easily accessible by public transport. Or perhaps public transport is simply too expensive. People are unlikely to abandon their cars unless public transport is affordable, reliable, and convenient. Those three words are worth remembering. Affordable, not too expensive. Reliable, it works when you need it. Convenient, it's practical and easy to use. So instead of saying people don't use buses because they're bad, you can say people may be reluctant to use public transport if services are unreliable or inconvenient. Much better. And notice that little word, may. That's hedging. We're not claiming that this is true in every situation. So, public transport. Well, public transport can offer several advantages. If more people travel by bus or by train, there may be fewer cars on the roads. That can reduce congestion. It can also reduce air pollution and potentially lower carbon emissions. There's another important advantage, accessibility. A good transport network allows people to reach work, education and other services more easily. This is particularly important for people who don't own a car. So you could say, well-designed public transport networks can improve accessibility while reducing dependence on private vehicles. That's a very useful IELTS sentence. Notice the phrase, reduce dependence on. That means make people less reliant on something. So, better public transport could reduce dependence on private cars. That's much more precise than people would use less cars or people would use their cars less. What about building more roads? Now, let's be fair. Building more roads can also have some advantages. If a city has serious traffic problems, increasing road capacity may appear to be an obvious solution. More roads could improve the movement of vehicles. And for people who generally need to drive, better roads can make journeys easier. But there's a potential problem. If you make driving easier, more people may choose to drive. And eventually the roads become congested again. So the issue isn't simply cars are bad, it's more complicated. The real question is, how can cities provide people with convenient ways of travelling without creating unsustainable levels of traffic and pollution? That's the sort of question that gives you something substantial to discuss in IELTS. So, don't give a one-sided answer. Here's another useful IELTS technique. When you're asked to discuss both views, don't spend your entire answer explaining why your preferred opinion is correct. Give the other side a fair hearing, yeah? For example, on the one hand, expanding road networks may help reduce congestion in the short term, particularly in areas where existing infrastructure is adequate. That's a reasonable argument. Then, on the other hand, investing in public transport may provide a more sustainable long-term solution by reducing dependence on private vehicles. And now you've got a genuine comparison. Short-term versus long-term. Road capacity versus public transport. Personal convenience versus environmental responsibility. And finally, from my perspective, greater investment in public transport is preferable, provided that services are affordable, reliable, and convenient. That's a much stronger IELTS position than simply I prefer buses. Now, a writing task. Question 2. Some people believe that government should spend money on improving public transport, while others think that building more roads is a better option to solve traffic problems. Discuss both views and give your opinion. Let's build the argument. More roads. They could increase road capacity, improve traffic flow, make driving more convenient. Better public transport. It could reduce congestion, reduce dependence on private vehicles, improve accessibility, and create more sustainable transport systems. And here's a useful thesis. Although expanding road networks may provide short-term benefits, I believe greater investment in public transport offers a more sustainable long-term solution. That's strong because you've immediately shown concession, opinion, comparison. You simply haven't chosen a side. You've explained why. 5 expressions worth stealing. Let's take 5 useful chunks. Urban areas. Traffic congestion is particularly serious in densely populated urban areas. Private vehicles. Many people remain dependent on private vehicles. Public transport infrastructure. Governments should invest in public transport infrastructure. Reduce congestion. Better transport networks could reduce congestion. And a sustainable long-term solution. Public transport may provide a sustainable long-term solution. These expressions give you the vocabulary to move on from there are too many cars and the roads are busy to growing urban populations have increased dependence on private vehicles, contributing to congestion and air pollution. And that's the shift we're looking for. So, should we build more roads? Should we improve public transport? Perhaps the real answer is neither. Perhaps the future of transport is going to look completely different. Electric vehicles, cycling networks, intelligent transport systems, autonomous vehicles, and maybe cars that don't need drivers at all, driverless cars. But the technology creates a new question. If we make cars cleaner and smarter, do we still need to change the way we travel? And that is where the debate about transport gets really interesting.